This might be the weirdest episode of Severance yet. We had literal goat people inside of Lumen's offices. Not just that, I feel like Mr. Milchek's entire promotion, everything about what's going on with him this season, might be a DEI hire. And I know that's a very controversial term right now, but seriously, what else could it be? And then, is Dylan G a traitor? I think he is. What do you guys think? We're gonna break all that down this episode, and I want to start off just like this episode started, with Miss Cobel. Miss Cobel was sleeping in her car. She seems to have been running away from Lumen, but something inside of her changed. She wanted to go back after seeing the lactation equipment from Mark's sister Devin in the backseat of her car. I don't know if that's going to cause her to switch alliances and work with Mark, especially with what happened at the end of the episode, because later in the episode, she was talking to Helly and she demanded control of MDR and asked for Mr. Milchek to be fired. I thought she was playing the long game, but when Helly told her, let's go talk to the board, and she started following Helly, she realized, whoa, and then she just ran off. I'm really curious as to why Miss Cobel feels like she deserves to be where she's at. Why does she care so much? What does she really want? Because I don't think it's just about Cold Harbor. I think she has some sort of affection for Mark. The same obsession you should have with clicking that subscribe button, because the way she obsesses about Mark and then the fact that his sister's child can change her mind, it doesn't add up in my head. It just adds to the whole mystery of what does she want in the end? Is she going to be a whistleblower? Because now that she knows Lumen could potentially be after her, because I think Helly was about to go ice her in there or put her wherever Miss Casey was. And she knew that because she knows a lot of secrets about Lumen. So do you think that Miss Cobel is going to blow the whistle and work with Mark? Especially that we know that Mark now has gone through reintegration. I'm getting too ahead of myself. We're gonna get into that part a little later because all that is strange. It adds to the mystery of the episode, but it also starts to make me feel like I know what Lumen is working on, and I wanna talk about why I think Lumen is a pharmaceutical company. But for us to get there, we have to get to the GOAT people. And that starts off with Mark looking for Miss Casey. Mark starts off by making photocopies of a sketch that Irving made of Miss Casey, which they plan to spread to the different floors. So when Mark and Helly are heading to the GOAT department, something weird happens there, which kind of confirms to me that Helly G might not be the Helly G from the first season. And what I mean by that is, I've read online that a lot of people are thinking that she is her Audi version that's inside of Lumen, especially with what happened last episode when we saw all the characters go in the elevator and the elevator dinged, except for Helly. When she went into the elevator, nothing happened. I think that's Helly G's Audi that's actually inside of Lumen with Mark and MDR. And I feel like this episode kind of confirmed it when Mark and her were talking in the hallway, and you can tell she wanted a kiss, but she didn't initiate it. And the reason why I found that strange was last season when she went in for the kiss with Mark, Mark didn't initiate it. Helly G just went for it. And we saw this season when Helly's Audi was watching the video of her and Mark kiss, she kept rewinding it, almost like she was fascinated, like she wanted to feel what that felt like. We saw her relationship with her father. Her father clearly is tough and doesn't show her the love that she needs. And she's finally getting that love inside the Severance floor, but she doesn't know how to initiate it. So that's why I'm starting to think that this scene did everything it could to solidify that that's not the Helly G that we know and we're accustomed to. But now, once they get into the GOAT room, they go through a little goat doggy door and they end up in a room that's like a giant, instead of an open field, it's a giant closed field in the office. There's nothing but goats roaming around and grazing and people dressed as goats. The reason why this is important is because goats are a very important animal when it comes to testing pharmaceuticals or biomedical things. Goats are used in biomedical research, they're used in teaching and surgical training because they're very easy to handle and have a physiology that's very similar to humans. Goats are used to study human diseases, produce antibodies, and generate recombinant proteins for pharmaceuticals. Now you guys see where I'm going with this. And it makes sense because pharmaceuticals globally is one, if not the most lucrative business you can get into. It would make sense as to why they would need to sever their employees, because whatever they're doing is top secret. Quite frankly, if there exists a drug that can make employees forget about their life for 8 hours and focus on their work to maximize productivity, I think that's something that would be thriving in the marketplace. Now that I'm starting to think that pharmaceuticals is what they're doing here. I was initially thinking it was weapons, but now with the goats And the fact that the people in the GOAT department are so strange, they surrounded Mark and Helly, but instead of attacking, once Mark actually touched their humanity about Miss Casey, they decided they were not going to impede on his work and they were going to let him search for her because she was so nice. I feel like everyone on the severed floor just loves Miss Casey, except for Dylan. In last week's video, I was a little harsh on Dylan's character because the way he talked to his wife. But this episode kind of made me want to double down on my suspicions on Dylan because Dylan refused to help Mark. Not only did he refuse to help Mark, he also refused to help Irving. And that's because of what Mr. Milchek promised him in the first episode. The fact that he would get to see his wife again. And Mr. Milchek actually delivered on his promise. Dylan got to see his wife. And initially, I thought that wasn't his wife. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Watching the episode, I thought that was a fake actress until we saw her later in the episode at his actual house with his Audi. And that's really his wife. So they're giving him what he wants in order to keep him as a good employee who's going to work for Lumen and not against Lumen, which is suggesting that he has a deeper connection than we initially thought. And I thought Mr. Milchek couldn't stand him because he was the very first person Milchek fired. But Milchek is a man of his word, even though the company itself doesn't believe in Milchek. Because seriously, what was that with Kier and the whole portraits being Milchek? That's why I said earlier in the video, I feel like Milchek was a DEI promotion because not only did his balloon stay in the hallways, remember in the first episode, the computer still said Miss Cobel's name. It's almost as though they didn't give him the promotion because of the job he did, but they gave it to him because they had to fill a quota and he was there. The fact that they turned all of Kier's portraits into a black man to kind of make him feel like he fits in kind of reeks of like inclusion. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with inclusion. Come on, like I'm black, like this is, but I'm just saying the way that Lumen goes about it is weird and it doesn't make him feel appreciated or included. And then you add the fact that Miss Cobel wanted him fired. It starts to make more sense. She felt like he wasn't up to task. And I don't think when she became leader of the MDR floor, even though Natalie said that they gave her the same kind of pictures and the same treatment when it came to Kier, Natalie and Mr. Milchek are black and Miss Cobel is not. And I don't think they ever put her in that position because I feel like she would have posted. The way she was so devoted to Lumen and Kier, you would have saw her office flooded with those portraits, but you didn't see any of it. So I think they're doing something to try extra hard to have Milchek feel included. But at the same time, I don't think he has any real power. I have two theories as to why they're doing that. Theory number one, I think it's a form of conditioning. Lumen could be trying to shape their employees into believing they're aspects of Kier, therefore inspiring more loyalty. And at the same time, my second theory is, what if Milchek isn't fully aware of who he is? What if he's going through his own version of Severance? We think he's not severed, but we never see how he acts outside. I feel like Mr. Milchek was the last one to leave the office from the severed floor. And at what time does he get to enjoy his life if he's working all the time? He has a sweet motorcycle, so we know he likes to ride, but, oh, pause. We know he likes to ride his motorcycle, but what if it's all a form of control? The same way Milchek is controlling Dylan, what if he's also being controlled? And that's why Miss Cobel ran at the end, because while she thought she was in control, you saw how she stepped to Helly. She thought she was the one in control until Helly said, hey, come with me. The board wants to talk to you. And when Miss Cobel started following her, it got kind of suspicious when the driver started stepping and Miss Cobel realized, yo, if I go in there, they're either going to ice me or they're going to do whatever they did to Miss Casey to her. So while her running away at the end might have looked weird, it just felt like it was a natural thing to do. Like, she knows how Lumen works. She's been a part of them and she knows she oversteps a lot. She pressed her luck, but Helly's not playing with her, so she ran out of there. So even though it was a whole weird scenario, it's nowhere near as weird as the people on the GOAT floor asking to see Mark and Helly's belly. Speaking of the severed floor, when Felicia was talking to Irving and they were reminiscing about Bert G, when she was going through his little pocket drawing book, she saw a picture of everything his Audi was drawing. Because Irving was able to recreate the drawing that he saw his Audi was making, she called it the export hallway. And that was a hallway that the O&D department used to deliver things into, but they stopped allowing them to go there and they started getting somebody to bring the stuff there. That's interesting in itself, but to me, what's really interesting is how the severance works itself. I think severance as a whole, the whole process might be failing because the memories are bleeding through. Throughout the first season, we saw the black ink that Irv was seeing, and now that he can draw the room and Felicia could actually pinpoint where that room is, you see how even though he himself isn't reintegrated, his Audi and his Innie are able to share information somewhat because their memories are bleeding into one another. But the question for me is, if Irving's Audi is drawing these hallways, does it mean that he's been there before? And is his repetition of drawing the same thing over and over and over again as a way to engrave that in his head? Because the way Mark was trying to do this episode, he was trying to burn something in his retina. And we learned that you can't really burn anything in your retina because your pupils dilate when you go through the severed floor. But as a mind, if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, it gets ingrained and your memories start to sync up. And that's how reintegration works, because at the end of the episode, we found out that the way you reintegrate is by syncing your Audi's brainwaves with the brainwaves of your Innie. Together, once they get into a perfect sync, you can blend your memories. And we learned that because Aysel Ragabi, the one who created the actual Severance program, the one who actually mastered it, is also the one who created reintegration. And what she did to Petey in the first season, I mean, R.I.P. Petey. Hopefully we see his flashback next episode, because I feel like we need to learn more about Petey's character for us to truly understand what is going on. I think Petey was starting to figure out what was happening. But what we learned from Ragabi is, one, she confirms this Casey is alive to Mark. We, as the audience, already knew that. But now that Mark knows and he wants to see his wife, he voluntarily joins the reintegration. Even though Ragabi says that she's better at it than she was when she did it with Petey, I still find that weird, because with Petey, I don't think Petey died that long ago for her to actually have mastered it. It's only been a few weeks since the first season until now, and apparently she's mastered it to the point where she can use it on Mark. Now Mark's Innie's mind and his Audi's mind have now merged together. Does that mean that they're gonna share their same experiences? Does that mean that they get to learn from each other? Or is it like, I don't know. What do you guys think? How do you think it's gonna work? And do you guys think now that Mark's, Innie, and Audi's minds are gonna start merging together, he's actually gonna like Rickon's book? Because not only did his Innie like it, but Lumen liked the fact that the book was able to galvanize the Innies, and they want his brother-in-law to create a version of that book for the Innies inside of the Severance floor, which makes me wonder, are they going to use that in conjunction with the drug that they're creating? Because I now more than ever, like I said already, I think Cold Harbor is a drug they're trying to create, and they're trying to master how to control the human psyche. I think that's what it is. And that's what all they talk about is praise Cure. Everyone who's a part of Lumen, who loves Lumen, praises Cure. They want some sort of obedience out of people. And I feel like if you can strip them of their mentality or their mind and their memories, and you can start to imprint things on them, it starts to work. That's why you have someone like Dylan G, who was with Mark the first 2 episodes, but now he wants to protect it because they found what really triggers him. The fact that he loves his family and they can control that. The fact that they brought in his wife, even though him and his wife had some private time together, we know Miss Hung was watching the entire time, so it's never really private. Everything Lumen does is about control, and I feel like the drug they're creating is a drug for control. But that's just my theory. I'd love to hear your guys' theory about it in the comment section below. And guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, peace.